Hello, my cool cat and kittens. So, due to time, I'm just going to go over this trig note here. So one thing I kind of just whipped together, I'm going to go through it, and I also posted it blank, so if you guys want to go through it with me and fill it out as we go. Seeing as you guys, I'm pretty sure all of you have already taken, you should have, grade 10 academic math. Hopefully this is more review, but again, I know given the current circumstance, who knows? Anyways, I'm just going to go through this stuff. Your final is on Monday. So what I'm going to be doing is with respect to trig, it's going to be a bit more trig heavy, but what everything you need to know will be in this lesson, okay? I won't put on similar triangles because we didn't have time, and I'm not going to do cosine law or sine law, okay? Just so katoa. Okay, so trig. So, trig means triangle measurement, and it's used to calculate lengths of sides and measures of angles. Oh, the one thing that's great about this video is you can pause at any time, right? Because later on, when I go through this stuff, I'm going to give a bunch of these examples, but I'm not going to do them all, okay, just for time. Who knows? Maybe I will, actually. We'll see how I get there. And then you guys, if you don't need it, you can just fast forward it, right? Okay, so 3 sides to a right angle triangles are. So there's the hypotenuse, the adjacent, and opposite. So the one thing that you need to know is whenever we're determining an angle, it's always, determining a side, it's always with respect to the angle. Okay, so determined with respect to, okay, so with respect to the angle. So in this question, the angle of interest, and I'm going to say that a lot, is this guy right here, okay? Because it's got that little indicator. So it'll always be obvious of which one is the angle of question, okay? So first side is the hypotenuse. So the one thing with the hypotenuse is it's always this side. So I kind of just went back on what I said, but whatever. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. So it's the side across from the right angle. So here's the right angle. Okay, that's what that means. And it's always across from it. Okay? Always, 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 always. And it's always the longest side too. So that's huge. Okay, so please remember that. The adjacent side is the side that is the closest to the angle of interest, and or it also touches the angle of interest. So that means this is the adjacent side with respect to that angle. Okay, so adjacent means it's actually touching it. And then, just because I already used the blue, opposite side, no, I'm going to back that up. Sorry, guys. Little switcheroo. So opposite is the one across from the angle of interest. Okay, so it doesn't touch the angle of interest at all. That is really important because if our angle of interest, now I'm going to show you really quick actually, is this guy. I'm just going to put a little X there. Well, the hypotenuse is still the one across from the angle, the 90-degree angle. But now the adjacent is the one I said touching the angle. So now that's the adjacent, and this is the opposite. Okay, so it is really important. So it's not always just the same, the adjacent's at the bottom. It really depends on where that angle is. Okay, so first example, an example in triangle XYZ, identify the hypotenuse, the adjacent side, and the opposite side for angle X. Okay, so this is our angle of interest. Okay, so the hypotenuse, again, is always the one across from the right angle. So this would be side XZ. The adjacent is the one that touches it, right? Like we said, because this is the angle of interest, this is my adjacent. So that's XY. So, process of elimination. That is my opposite. That's pretty straightforward, no? If you guys do need help with that, you got to let me know, okay? Okay, so in XYZ, identify the hypotenuse, adjacent, and the opposite. So same idea, except now this is my angle of interest. So, oh, bless me. Hypotenuse, again, always the longest side. I don't care what angle is the interest. So my hypotenuse is XZ. As you can see, it's the same as above. But in this case, my adjacent, the one that's touching the angle, is YZ. So last time it was my opposite, now it's my adjacent. So I'm hoping you guys can see the difference there. So label the hypotenuse, the adjacent, the opposite side for each marked angle. One thing I do recommend is you guys just pause the video and then label it to make sure that you're on the right track. And if you are, fantastic. And if you're not, again, that's when you need to reach out. Okay? So angle of interest is right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is label my hypotenuse because that's the easiest. I'm going to find where my angle is. That means this is my adjacent. Process of elimination. Opposite. Here's my angle of interest. There's my 90-degree angle. That means this is my hypotenuse. That means this is my adjacent and my opposite. All right, last but not least, angle of interest. There's my right angle, so this is my hypotenuse. This is my adjacent. This is my opposite. Oops. Okay, so these are the three ratios that you need to know, and this is the ones that you're going to be using when it comes to making calculations for angles and sides. Okay, so the primary trig ratios, so the sine ratio deals with the opposite and the hypotenuse. So if we go back up, oops, opposite was green, or sorry, hypotenuse was green. Okay? And then the opposite was that purple color, from what I remember. Yep. Okay. So, when we have to find an angle, now I'm going to do examples, okay? When we have to find an angle or side, we have to determine what we have. So we label the sides, and we'll figure out what angle is needed or what angle we have, and then from there we can figure out which ratio we're going to use. Okay, so as you can see, our sine uses opposite over hypotenuse. Here's my short form. Here's my opposite, and here's my hypotenuse. So when we're dealing with sine, we say so, because so katoa. Does that sound familiar? I hope so. So the reason why we say so katoa is because sine deals with opposite and hypotenuse. Okay, so S-O-H, and then that's the order. So sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? And then if we really want to get fancy, we can do our sine. Our sine. Okay, just so you can see where that's coming from. So our adjacent, so for cosine, sorry, I should say, is our adjacent over our hypotenuse. So again, cos, ka, is our adjacent over our hypotenuse, and that's why it's ka, C-A-H. And then last but not least, we have our opposite over our adjacent this time. Okay, so as you can see for this one, there's no hypotenuse. Okay, so this tells us which ratio we have to use depending on what we have. So when it comes to figuring out which one we use, we got to go through a few steps. So it says solve for the unknown in each equation or each question using the correct ratio. So make a right angle triangle. So this step's not always needed. This one's already done. So I'm just going to mark it off. Label the sides of the triangle. Okay, so let's do that first. So here's our angle of interest. That means this is my hypotenuse. Well, that doesn't mean that. It's always my hypotenuse. That's across the right angle. Here's my adjacent, and here's my opposite. Awesome. Determine what needs to be found. What needs to be found? Okay. It's my x, because that's the x. That's what it means. It's the unknown. So the question will say solve for the unknown. Write out the trig ratio to be used. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to write out SOHCAHTOA. Okay, because we're going to determine what we need to use. So here's my x. So what do we have? What do we need? So it's always with respect to the angle. We need our opposite. As you can see, it's our opposite. That's the unknown. So that's this guy and this guy. So that means we're not using cos. Okay, she gone. Bye. What else do we have? We have our adjacent, right? Because we don't have a number for hypotenuse. Could you calculate it? Yeah, well, technically, but then you have to go... You have to find it, and then you find the x, and it's just, that's more work than you need to do. So there's no point. So I need my adjacent. That's here. So that means I'm not using sine. I'm using tan. So now it says solve for the unknown. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to use... I don't want to use yellow because it's not as easy to see. I'll use orange. Okay, solve for the unknown. So I know I'm using tan. So I'm going to write out my ratio. Tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. Cool. Or tan theta, I should say, sorry. Move that over. Tan theta. Theta is another thing to represent angles, okay? So let's fill in what we have. So do I have an angle? Yes. Okay, it's 37. Do I have an opposite? No. Okay, so that's my x. Do I have an adjacent? Yes, it's 8. Okay, so this is where your basic algebra comes in. We have to solve for x. That means we have to get x by itself. Is x by itself? No. Okay, what's with the x? There's an 8. It's a divide by 8. What's the opposite of divide by 8? Multiply by 8. Multiply by 8. This is easy stuff, guys. If you don't know this stuff, we need to go way backwards. Okay, you guys are grade 10 academic. I'm expecting you guys to know this. So we multiply both by 8. Those get crossed off. So it's going to be 8 times tan 37. I'm going to put that in my calculator. 8 times tan 37. And it's 6.02. Does it say how many decimal places? No. We'll just do a couple. X is equal to 6.028. Oh, so it should be 603. And that is the length. Okay? That's it. I'm going to do it again. I'm not going to use so many colors. There should be a line that separates these. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do it again, just not so many colors this time, okay, guys? So, again, from this point, if you want to listen along, obviously do so. If you remember doing trig, or if you felt like you were pretty good at trig, pause the video, see if you can do it, okay? I got the sniffles. Alrighty, so let's do it again. I'm going to label my triangle. So here's my angle of interest, because it's already there. That means this is my hypotenuse, this is my opposite, this is my adjacent. Okay, so I'm going to write down my SOHCAHTOA. Oh, come on. Cool. Okay, so I need my opposite, so I'm not using cos, and I have my hypotenuse, so I'm not using tan. So I'm going to use sine theta is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, let's start putting stuff in. Sine theta, so 65. What's my opposite? X again. 32. Same idea, guys. We got to solve for x. this is being divided by 32, so the opposite is multiplied by 32, which crosses those two out. So 32 times sine 65 is 29. Boom. Okay. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what I'm going to do, guys, I am going to go through these. I'm not going to sit and explain each one with as much detail, but I do recommend that you guys go through it yourselves, see if you can get it, check my answer, and if you don't, watch my explanation and see what went wrong, okay? Alrighty. Okay, so what do we got? This is my angle of interest. This is my hypotenuse. Oops. Oh, come on. There we go. Hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. Okay, so I need my hypotenuse, so I'm going to get rid of this. I have my adjacent, so I'm going to get rid of this. So cos theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So I've got cos 47 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. One thing that we can do is switch these two. Because of algebra, it works. So it's going to be x is equal to 4 divided by cos 47. .86, 5.9. Do we have units? No. Okay, cool. Alrighty. Keep going. I've got my angle of interest, my hypotenuse, my opposite, and my adjacent. Okay, so this time I'm finding an angle. So what sides do I have? I have my adjacent and I have my hypotenuse. So I'm using cos. Now the math's going to be slightly different here. So it's going to be cos theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So it's going to be cos theta because it's the representation. Is equal to adjacent. Oops. 11. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for this guy first. Okay, so it's going to be cos theta is equal to 5 divided by 11. I'm just going to keep 4 decimal places. Now we need to get the theta by itself. So usually it'd be like, okay, well, you divide by cos. You can't do that. Okay, you can't divide by cos because in the math world that just doesn't make sense. What you have to do is you have to do cos to the minus 1. Then that would cross this out. So that means on this side you have to do cos to the minus 1, negative 45. So in this case, when it comes to your calculators, you might have to press second or shift. Okay, I don't know what kind of calculator you guys have. So it's going to look like second. It should be in the top left or right hand corner, or it'll be shift. Okay, one of those two. And then you type in this case, it'll be cos. So if you were to look at your calculator, it should have cos to the minus 1 in the same color your second or shift button is in. That's what it's like with mine anyways. If you guys are having troubles with this, send me a picture of your calculator and I can go through it with you. But hopefully you know it. So that's what I have to do. I have to do second cos 0.4545, okay? So it's gonna look like mine's, I have a Texas Instrument TI 30X 2S. So I'm going to do second. I'm going to do cos. And then I'm going to do 0.4545. Okay? So try it. I get 62.96, so 63. Okay? You didn't get that, you have to let me know, because then all your answers on your final will be wrong. Okay? So a little bit different there. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Okay, let's do her again. I've got my opposite. Oh my gosh, I lied to you. I've got my hypotenuse. I've got my opposite. I've got my adjacent. Okay, what do I need? I need an angle, but I have my hypotenuse, so I'm getting rid of my tan. I have my opposite, so I'm getting rid of my cos. So it's going to be sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse. So it's going to be sine theta is equal to 7 over 9. Okay. And then theta is, now I'm just going to skip all that. If you guys need an explanation, just message me. 51.1 degrees. Sweet, eh? You can put that in your calculator all at once. Again, if you want to know, I can show you. Okay, so what do we got? Hypotenuse. I've got my opposite. I've got my adjacent. So I need an angle. I've got my adjacent, and I've got my opposite. So tan. Opposite over adjacent. So tan theta. Oh my goodness, driving me nuts. Is equal to 15 over 8. That means my angle is equal to 61.962 degrees. Not bad. Okay, this last one, it just says write all the ratios. Okay, you don't have to solve. So we're going to be doing, and we're just literally plugging in the numbers. Adjacent over opposite. I lied to you. It's opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. See? That's why it's important, or you get the wrong answer. Here's our angle of interest. That means this is my hypotenuse. This is my opposite. This is my adjacent. So sine theta, my opposite is 5. My adjacent is 7 over 9. And my tan is 5 over 7. Right? Yeah. There we go. That's all you have to do for that one. If you were to solve these, you should get all the same answer. Got 33.7 for this one. Let's just, 33.7. Second cos, 7 divided by 9. Ooh, I got 38.9. It's a little off. Second tan. Oh, I know why. I think I've done this before, and I figured out why, because this could be a little messed up of a triangle. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Opposite over adjacent. yeah, I think that's why they're all really, really close to each other, but I think because this triangle is not perfect, it might not be able to be a triangle. That's what the thing is, because if you were to measure out 5 centimeters by 7 centimeters, and then you were to put in the 9, it either would be too long or too short. That's why. Okay, so this is all I was worried about anyways. Anyways, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here for your help. Besides that, good luck.